Hey guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin, and today we're unboxing the Lenovo Flex 5G, known as the Yoga 5G in any other place in the world. It was originally called Project Limitless, announced last year, and it's the world's first 5G PC. Now, what does that mean to you? Not much. Because honestly, 5G is new, it's complicated, it's not really ready yet, but in the lifetime of this PC, it will mean something to you, right? So, I'm going to break this down a little bit. 5G is made up of sub-6 low band, sub-6 mid band, and millimeter wave. Now, what's cool about this device is that it supports both sub-6 and millimeter wave bands, whereas other PCs that have been announced and haven't been released yet, the Intel-based ones, which have Qualcomm modems in them, those are sub-6 only. So it's cool that it supports millimeter waves. Now, is it useful though? Because millimeter waves are tricky. They only exist in select cities because they're very expensive to roll out. They don't work indoors. They can be blocked by something as simple as a piece of paper or a window. So they only work outdoors. Now, here's the question: how often do you use your PC outdoors? That's so. This is a device that works on Verizon. It's marketed as a Verizon device. It's sold it's sold by Verizon. It's also sold by Lenovo.com. And it also supports every single 5G band that any US carrier uses. So I haven't tried it yet, and it may be locked to Verizon. It shouldn't be. There may be issues with whitelisting on other carriers, but as far as the hardware goes and as far as the specs go, it should support 5G on any carrier you want. So you can forget the fact that it's not Verizon exclusive to anything. It's just sold by Verizon. And so you could get it on a nice payment plan if you're buying it, if you're a Verizon customer, obviously. And Verizon, of course, has that millimeter wave network. Now, one of the features that Lenovo and Qualcomm are pointing out about this is that you get 2 gigabit per second download speeds. That is true with the millimeter wave 5G, but again, that only works outdoors. Sub-6 is a lot slower. It's still faster than 4G LTE will be, but like they said, 10 times faster than 4G. And you'll see those speed tests, but you'll never see those speed tests happen indoors unless they find a way to start rolling out networks for indoor use, which I have no doubt will happen at some point. Other things. Improved battery life because it's a 60 watt hour battery. This is the successor to the Lenovo Yoga C630 WOS, it was called because it was Windows on Snapdragon. That one had a Snapdragon 850. Lenovo's actually the only company that's been on board with all 3 generations of Windows on ARM. The Snapdragon 835 with the Mix 630, the Snapdragon 850 with the Yoga C630, and now with the Flex or Yoga 5G with the Snapdragon 8CX. Now that we've talked about 5G a little bit, let's talk about the processor. Before I even get it out, I'll start getting it out of the box while I'm talking about the processor. Snapdragon 8CX is the first Qualcomm chipset that's built for PCs from the ground up. That's a meaningful thing because remember, there's been 3 generations so far, but the first 2 were based on smartphone processors. In fact, the first one was the Snapdragon 835, which was very much a smartphone processor. That's no surprise, though, because here's how stuff like this works. You use existing processors until there's a category, and then you build for the category. Same thing happened with smartwatches. Remember those first Android Wear smartwatches came with Snapdragon 400 processors, which were smartphone chipsets, and then they made Snapdragon Wear. So, the next one was Snapdragon 850, which was based on the Snapdragon 845. It was more modified than the 835 was, but it was still based on a smartphone chipset. And then you had the 8CX. The C stands for compute, the X stands for extreme. That's meaningful as well because the following year, they announced the Snapdragon 7C and the 8C. So the 8C is still premium, but it's not extreme premium. Right? So the computer is going to be in here. And then in here we're going to have the charger. I'm going to guess 45 watts on this one. Yes, 45 watts USB-C. That goes back in the box because I've got plenty of those. And like I always say, it just makes it easier to ship back if I never take the charger out of the box. All right. So the Snapdragon 8CX 2.84 gigahertz octa-core, good stuff. I'm a huge fan of Windows on ARM, if you can't tell by how much I talk about it and how much I know about it because I'm into it. All right. This is very similar to the C630. It's a little bigger because it's got a 14-inch screen instead of a 13.3-inch screen. Like I said, it's got a bigger battery, and that bigger footprint fits a more antennas, because you need antennas for 5G, for millimeter wave 5G. See, I got a SIM pin in here. I'm guessing that there should be a Verizon SIM in there that's activated. But yeah, millimeter waves. Millimeter waves are tricky because, like I said, it can be blocked by literally anything. So when you build a device that supports millimeter wave, you have to have antennas on every single possible spot. Smartphones themselves are tricky because if you go and you have to account for wherever the user's hand might be. So there has to be an antenna on the front, on the top, on the bottom, here, at every possible side. Because if you have an antenna back here and the 5G antenna is coming in this way, the screen's going to block the signal. That's how hard it is to build millimeter wave antennas into devices, but they did it. And I'm going to test this out this weekend. Now, this thing is made of aluminum and magnesium. It weighs 2.7 pounds, so it's not going for the thin and light market. Now, this is the third Snapdragon 8CX device. The first was the Samsung Galaxy Book S, and also the Microsoft Surface Pro X, which had a custom version of the 8CX. Both of those were very thin and light. Obviously, the Surface Pro X is a tablet, and the Galaxy Book S was a very thin and light laptop, which really showed off what Windows on ARM could do. Okay, so this one's 2.97 pounds, so it's not particularly light. But what's cool about this is that it's actually the first Snapdragon 8CX device that's a convertible. That's the thing that excites me about that. Oh man, I didn't have to power it on. This might be the first review unit. That's a very glossy screen. But it was just powered on right out of the box. There's that 5G logo. But yeah, powered on right out of the box. And that's one of the cool things about Windows on ARM is that it just works. I mean, it works right out of the box. It's instant on, it's called. So if we look at the keyboard, we got some cool stuff over here. Stuff that we also had on the C630, by the way. Those front-facing speakers, Dolby Atmos, by the way, I think that's new. And it's also very cool. Like we're going to get some solid sound quality out of this. These speakers are firing right up at you while you're using it. Although they are firing away from you if you're using it as a tablet, which you can do because, like I said, it is the very first Snapdragon 8CX convertible. The Galaxy Book S was a clamshell. Now, I like the keyboard on this because it should be just about this. Oh yeah, it feels good. It's pretty shallow. It has proper resistance. It's quiet. I really like Lenovo keyboards, and I'm starting to like their consumer keyboards even better than ThinkPads because they're shallower. It's good stuff. But yeah, we got Windows on ARM. That's the big story here. By the way, we have that little reverse notch on top, and if we can see, it actually says Lenovo 5G on there. Now, the reverse notch kind of works as a little lid when you go to open it. I mean, a lip, I should say. A lip for the lid when you go to open it. So it's just a little bit easier. It sticks out, and then you can easily just open it with one finger here. Makes it easy. That's all that is. It's something that Lenovo's been going with on a lot of their PCs, and it's made its way over here. We've got two USB 3.1 Type-C ports. And then over here, we've got a power button, 3.5 millimeter audio, and this switch is for airplane mode. So if I flip this, it's just going to go right into airplane mode, which is interesting. Now, it says that I don't have any service, which is a real problem, but it's also not offering any cellular connectivity for me. So we can go into settings and see why. Okay, just need a little reboot there. I checked to make sure that there was a SIM card inside. And you know what? Windows is just kind of funky like that. It'll just decide that you don't have cellular at some point. You got to reboot, and that's the only way you're going to do it. It's not it's not an issue with the PC. It's an issue with Windows. It just happens. But yeah, so it's connected to 4G LTE right now, like it will for most of the people that connect to this device. I'm going to have to take a train into New York City just to connect to 5G on Verizon's network. And I'm going to have to use it. I'm going to run some speed test outdoors. I'm going to play with it a little bit, and I'm going to come home. And, and then I'm going to pop a T-Mobile SIM in there, and I'm going to see if it'll actually connect to 5G from T-Mobile, because I bet it will. It should. It supports all the bands. There's no reason that it shouldn't. But as far as software goes, there's no bloatware. There's actually probably even less than on an Intel PC, because, for instance, Lenovo Vantage is here, but it doesn't really do anything because there's no drivers to download on an ARM PC. McAfee is not here, which is fantastic. There's no third-party AV software, probably because it requires x64. Windows 10 on ARM does support all Intel 32-bit Intel apps through emulation, and it supports native ARM64 apps. x64 emulation is coming at some point. We just don't know exactly when, probably this year in preview. But in the meantime, we get the 32-bit out. So what you're missing out on is things like Adobe Premiere Pro, Photoshop. You'll get 2018 or something like that. I think Illustrator is 2019, but that's just what it is. Like I said, USB 3.1. The reason there's no Thunderbolt is because that's going to be an Intel thing for now until USB 4.0 comes out. Okay, so this is definitely meant to be a premium device. Like the last generation, the 600 series in Yoga is more like the entry level of the Yoga lineup, so it's low level premium. We could call it upper mid tier, mainstream, something like that. And this is definitely meant to be more premium. It starts at $14.99, and the thing is, there's definitely a 5G tax there. Most of the 5G devices that we've seen so far are sub-6 only. And I'm talking about phones too. There are the only phones that support millimeter wave and sub-6 for everybody is the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus and the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and the ones that are exclusive to Verizon. OnePlus 8, LG V60, Samsung Galaxy S20, the regular one, not the Plus or the Ultra. They're all sub-6 only unless you buy it from Verizon, because Verizon only has a millimeter wave network right now. They're coming out with a sub-6 network later this year. So those devices that do both tend to cost more. There is a 5G tax here to be paid, because remember, there's a 1080p display, 8 gigs of RAM. I think there's 256 gigs of storage. So if you consider what you actually get here, this is an expensive PC. It's $1,500. And the memory and the storage are decidedly mid-range. The processor, pros and cons. You know what I mean? It's if you're running all native applications, it's definitely faster, much faster than an Intel Y series processor. If you're running apps or emulation, it's going to be slower. Compared to Intel U series, it should be just about on par using native apps. So what the actual benefits are cellular connectivity integrated into the chipset. And that actually matters, because I gotta say, I've reviewed a bunch of Intel cellular PCs. It's buggy. There's all the times where it just, for some reason, it just doesn't feel like connecting. Although it just kind of happened now, but that was just when it didn't recognize cellular. It's a little different. I've had Intel cellular experiences where I just couldn't connect no matter what I tried, and there didn't seem to be any reason for it. This was a simple reboot. You know what I mean? It's a little different. Instant on. Notice how when I pulled up the lid, it just came on. I don't know if you've had this problem with Intel PCs where you go and you open the lid, screen is black, you press the power button to turn it on. You wait. And you say, well, maybe I didn't press the button all the way. I'm going to press it again. And right before you press it, the screen lights up. And then you press it, it puts it back to sleep, and you got to start all over again. That's happened to me so many times with Intel PCs. It doesn't happen with Qualcomm chipsets because they're designed in a way It's like your phone where it just instantly wakes up. And the whole point, because they never really go to sleep, they don't hibernate because they have big cores and little cores. And those little cores those are the ones that are active while it's asleep. And so they're able to do things like background tasks, notifications, stuff like that, all while not draining the battery. And then when you do the more powerful stuff, the big cores are used. Okay. The other thing is battery life, and I'm really hoping to get some solid battery life out of this. 60 watt hours. That's a big battery. And so, they've promised great battery life out of these things, and I've never really found that to be the case. But also at the same time, if you want to another advantage of this is you don't need a fan. And so you get these thinner and lighter form factors that are meant to take advantage of what this thing can do. So you get a smaller battery too. So look at that Samsung Galaxy Book S. The thing is so thin. But of course you get a smaller battery because of that. But also it's taking advantage of what is unique to this processor. So same thing with Surface Pro X, super thin. So this one's not particularly thin, and it's not particularly light. It's if this thing was Intel powered, I'd expect it to look the same. So hopefully I'll get some solid battery life out of this. And by the way, one of the reasons it's supposed to get better battery life is because even the big cores use less power. They have a lower TDP. It's the way it works, but also the fact that it has those little cores to not consume as much power when it doesn't need to. So anyway, guys, I've talked enough because I could go on about Windows on ARM all day, but that's it. I'll have a review on this in a few weeks. I'm going to go test out Verizon's 5G this weekend, and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to pop a T-Mobile SIM in there and hope that it connects to T-Mobile's Sub 6 5G. So stay tuned. I'm Rich from NeoWin. Have a great night.